Hello everyone. Welcome to my teaching learning session. We continue with BPCC-131. Today we move from personality to another huge concept, which is intelligence. Intelligence is something which differentiates human species, human individual, not only in their capacity to function, but also in their capacity to do their tasks, to excel in life, to be able to be distinguishedly recognized amongst people. So intelligence is not a very smaller concept in psychology, but a very huge concept that talks about number of abilities together. And intelligence can also not be defined as one ability. Intelligence is an ability to think well, reason well, and judge well. So it's an ability to understand all the incoming information that is coming to you. So when we speak about incoming information, it is coming from the five senses. It is also the verbals and the non-verbals that happen around us, and we make sense of it. Wechsler quoted a very beautiful definition of intelligence, stating that it's an aggregate global capacity to act purposely, think rationally, and to deal with the environment effectively. So, speaking of that, we need to know that Wechsler did state that if we actually go to the intricacies of the definition, it is an aggregate capacity. What does aggregate means? It is a number of aggregate capacities together, which is intelligence is not just about one ability, it is about number of abilities. That's why it's an aggregate. We use all of them together. We use all of them together to act purposely in life, which is deal with the environment effectively, and also at sometimes we think rationally, which is to be rational enough to understand what is right and what is wrong. Also to note that people who are falling below 70 on an IQ scale, which is the number of 70, the intelligence quotient that we talk about, tests are considered. These people are considered as intellectually disabled. So we need to know intelligence does come in a continuum, which is people falling on the highest side would be called as brilliant and gifted. The ones who are coming in the 50s would be called as somebody who is the average. And once you go below, the middle section of the country, it comes down to be below average, and further below that are people who are mentally disabled, which is IQ quotient, intelligence quotient equal to 70, less than that. Also to understand, does intelligence gets impacted by something? Do we state that intelligence has that thing that it can be influenced by something? It can be influenced by the genetic makeup of the parent. It can be influenced by the environment that we are a part of. Considerably, yes. It's both are right, which suggests that intelligence is actually impacted by both nature and nurture. Let's dwell into it and understand what is nature and nurture in terms of intelligence. Nature refers to the genetic factors that we are inheriting from our parents. So it could be essentially the factors are skin colors, the height, your body stature, the skin color, the hair color, the eye color, the skin texture, all of this. And also it is stated to some percent, the nature. Psychologists mention that even intelligence is something which is influence of children by their parents, the kind of genetic code that they are inheriting. Then the other comes out to be the most influential in today's time, which is called the nurture. Nurture is ideally to be mentioned the environmental features that we have all around, which is environmental factors that we have around us. This could be the conditions of the family, the parental rearing, the socio-economic condition, social support, the cultural support of the environment, the kind of culture that we are living in, the kind of learning that the culture is giving to us. Anything that does not come within the person, but it's around the person, is considered as nurture. I will also say, when we go to working and your work conditions are, deteriorating, which is the building is bad, we just imagining it hypothetically, the building is at their unhygienic condition, the work environment, people are not very well courteous, they do not treat workers alike, they're not very equal to one another. So remember, all of this comes together and add on to as a nurture factor, which is the environmental factors. Anything outside the person is considered to be that, and it does impact intelligence. Tell me, give a child a good home tuition, the best of schools, the child is going to skill something and become, are going to hone their skills on something and do well in their life. At the same time, look at the cultural environment is very deteriorating, is very depriving, and they do not allow some section of people to study. Remember, no matter how intelligent the person is, if the culture does not allow you to be a part of education, you will not be able to exhibit those abilities that you have. So nurture equally plays a very important part. There has been a lot of debate amongst the nature and nurture, who impacts whom more. But it's considered that, when we talk about nature, nature is an intelligence which is purely controlled by hereditary factors. As we are going more deeper in this topic, we should understand that nature suggests that it's more of a factor which is not controlled by us. It is something which we receive, which we get. It is not something that we can control. Also, these psychologists were called as nativists. So those who support the view are called nativists, regard differences in human behavior as a result of genetic makeup. So any changes in human behavior were considered because of what? It was considered because of the genetic makeup that we are comprising of. Also, at the same time, they are based on studies of identical twins. Yes, nature as a research was highly supported by study of identical twins. They mentioned there were a lot of studies which were done on twins, which was monozygotic and dizygotic. Monozygotics are twins which look similar because they come from the same ovum. And the dizygotic twins were people who are coming from two different ovas, like two different separated ovums. The rationale behind such researches is that if identical twins possesses the same level of intelligence. So it was quoted, it was found that monozygotic twins, the twins which were completely identical, were found to have a very similar gene code, and mentioned that they will have similar amount of intelligence irrespective of their environment, and attributed that this was because of the identical genes of the twins. If identical twins were reared apart and are more similar in their intelligence level, then non-identical twins who are reared apart, which suggests there are twins which do not look same, who do not have the same gene code, and there are twins which are coming from monozygotic, which looks the same. So the twins which are reared together or reared apart, they tend to have far more similarity than the twins who do not look the same, do not comprise of the similar kind of gene code and genetic endowment of intelligence. So you should know that nature does state that it's all because of the inheritance, the genetic inheritance where the intelligence is influenced by. Also, twin study equally supported them, especially the monozygotic twins studies were highly supporting, because children who are born with a similar kind of gene code had the similar genes, had the similar capacity of intellect, in comparison to the dizygotic twins, which is in comparison to twins who did not look the same. So there were a lot of differences in cognitive abilities as inherited. Also, the twins who do not look the same has some difference in their abilities also. So this was some support which happened on the levels of nature. Now let's move to something which is nurture. Nurture supporters and nurture psychologists were called as environmentalist and empiricist. So advocates of this view believe that people differ from each at a level of intelligence due to the experiences that they have in their environmental condition. So one of the most known psychologists here was called John Locke, who stated that the mind is like a tabula rasa, which is like a blank slate. Whatever that you put on that slate, whatever that you put there, the child is going to become like that. So however you mold the child and give the environment, the child is going to be like that. So that is something which is nurture that we speak of. And nurture was supported by psychologists or researchers or supporters which are called as empiricists and environmentalists. They also advocated that to assume as an example, to take as an example, that a lot of rural, low background rural area children are not doing well in their life. They do not exhibit high intelligence. This is also because of low medical facilities, low nutrition, the kind of livability that these people are comprised of, which leads to lesser capacity. So we understand the kind of environment a child is living in, an individual is living in, does impact your capacities, which is intelligence. And one of the most important psychologists here was, do not forget, is John Locke. Let's move ahead with an understanding which states about a difference between the two and some examples of nature and nurture to talk about. Like nature refers to something, we look at the image above, it refers to the genetic inheritance. Simple. Nurture talks about all the factors which are present in your environment, things that are around you, not within you. Some things that you are not born with, but born after, like things that you receive after that you're born. Nature always plays a very important role. Nurture helps you shape the environment. Remember, without the nature, we actually cannot identify a child. So it plays a very important role. It is, nature has endowed an individual with beauty and intelligence. Also to know that also they mentioned that there is a British side of nature also, and violence is something which can also be inherited. And similarly, when we talk about nurture, nurture mentioned that nurture has a greater impact. Psychologists and researchers of nurture stated that nurture has a higher impact. So our crime level is reflected also because of the nature than nurture, people state. Also it is mentioned the child when being is born, the kind of environmental factors the child gets during being born, remember, will impact something which is by the nature. So we can see that, don't we see today that a lot of pregnancy are getting still in between because of wrong dietary factors, in intake of alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, all of this. Remember, the kind of environment, the kind of nutrition that you give from outside is something that's going to impact the child. So yes, nurture does shape a child, very strongly mentioned. Now, after completing the understanding of nature and nurture, let's understand an effect which was given by James Flynn in 1987, which was called as the Flynn effect. It suggests the importance of environment on the IQ. So Flynn effect was only, supporting something which was the nurture side, and they mentioned that we are going to tell you about the impact the environment has on the IQ. The culture is a very critical part in one's environment. We can undoubtedly not remove that thought. Undoubtedly, we need to stick to that nurture does shape us. Nurture is very important for us to grow into a healthy individual. Remember how personality wise strong you are, but if you get an environment where people start, ill talking to you, start depriving you from your needs, start letting you know that this is something that you don't need. So this is something which is going to be a problem. So Flynn effect is described as massive IQ gains, nearly 3 points per decade, and it mentions that thus environmental factors like malnourishment, nutrition, diseases, illiteracy can lead to further lower average IQ in our country and in our population, and this prevents us to reach our genetic potential. So let's take an example. A child has a parent who has been extremely talented, but the child does not get a good parenting time, parenting and rearing skills, does not get the nutrition because the child is being reared up by nannies. Also, the child tends to get too much of diseases because the child does not have an available parent. Remember, when we do not have an available parent, it gets so difficult for a child to, navigate through the problems and navigate through the other things in life. So remember, speaking of this in future keeps happening. Remember, we will not be able to reach the highest potential of our genetic potential, which is let's take an example. When we talk about, see so many researchers and scientists, we do not see what their children are doing because they probably are not doing the same, because they did not get the probably the kind of nutrition, the kind of environment, the kind of skilling and grooming that their parents got. So that is inhibiting, controlling us to reach to the highest genetic potential. So this is a risk in the coming times. We need to be very sure, very sure of that. Flynn effect says that environment needs to be nurtured, the environment needs to be properly made so that we are able to further take care of this. Now, moving ahead, let's start with some of the most important theories of intelligence, which is considered as two. Psychometric approach is considered one, and information processing is considered as another. These are approaches, which means that there are theories under these approaches, and these two approaches are two different and distinct parts of intelligence. So let's start with psychometric. Psychometric theories are, as it say, they are metric. They're quite quantitative in nature, and they consider intelligence to be an aggregate of abilities. Also, they express an individual's performance in cognitive index, single index of cognitive ability. So it's 1, 2, 3. That means a person will be intelligent when they have a single index of cognitive abilities. Like 5 abilities, you're intelligent. If you do not have all the 5, you would not be intelligent. Then we come to something which is information processing approach. Describes that people use their intellectual reasoning and problem solving, which suggests that this type of intelligence does not stand upon the quantitative approach but qualitative. They describe intelligence as the process, the way you use it. So it's the people use intellectual reasoning and problem solving. The major focus in this approach is how an intelligent person acts, that cognitive functions underlying intelligent behavior. How is that cognitive functioning happening? So how the person is thinking, how the person is problem solving. We do not come to what is it, but how and why is it, which comes in information processing. So these are the two approaches, and both the approaches have some psychological theories, intellectual theories under it. Let's continue with these theories. One of the few theories of the psychometric approach, which was the metric one, the one which talks about quantity, the one which talks about aggregate of abilities, was Charles Spearman. Speaking of the first theory of it is Spearman's theory of intelligence. This was given by Charles Spearman, 1904. This theory was a kind of a revolution. It was statistically bound, which was, it is quantitatively accurate and very highly taken. It used a method of factor analysis, and he proposed that our cognitive activity or our mental activity can be consist of two factors. So how you process an intellectual functioning can be considered in two factors, and the two factors were called the general factor and the specific factor. So the G factor is that factor, general factor, that states that intelligence is composed of the general intelligence, which is, it's a broad spectrum. Everyone has that ability to perform. So if every individual has the ability to perform, they comprise of something which is general intelligence. Like, let's take an example. In a class, every child knows how to talk, knows how to raise their hands, knows how to speak and write. But what is going to be the S factor? This is the unique factor and the specific factor. It proposes that the cognitive abilities are related to one another, which is, hence, we need to know that this is something, the general is responsible for acquiring knowledge and abstract reasoning and adapting to novel situation. And whereas the specific factor is responsible for talent, specific work, specific task. But a child, let's continue with the same example. We have a class of 30. Every child knows how to talk, speak, write their answers. But there is 2 to 3 of them who speaks beautifully, present their answers, are vocal in class, are confident enough to reach out to the teachers and inform and teach the class too. That's the specific factor. So general factor is to be considered is, present in everybody. But the S factor is something which is going to be a little different. Let's take the same example. See, the general factor becomes the core, how you acquire knowledge, how you adapt to situations. But the specific becomes how do you mechanically upright, spatially, verbally, numerically upright. So those are specific things that we become great in, or we acquire one step ahead of it. So this was Spearman's theory of S factor and general factor. And it was used a statistical method of factor analysis and very accurate. This was the second theory, which is of psychometric theory, Louis Thurston's theory. This was 1938, came quite later, and this was also called as primary mental abilities. They had 7 clusters of primary mental abilities. Let's associate. This is a psychometric theory. What was the second point of psychometric theory? Psychometric theory stated that intelligence is also equivalent to the single index of cognitive ability. They have 7 index. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have all of them, and then you're intelligent. So see, this is how, when we speak about psychometric, their theories are so alike the definition. They give you so much of clarity that yes, it is a psychometric because it's a single index, it's quantitative. Spearman was quantitative. It utilized factor analysis, which is a statistical tool. Now, let's understand Louis Thurston's theory of primary ability. It is stated that the Louis Thurston theory had 7 primary abilities, which spoke of word fluency. Word fluency is the ability to think in words, use the words rapidly, like the task of anagrams, etc. Verbal comprehension is to understand and comprehend the meaning of paragraph, words, concept, theories, etc. on your own. This can also be reflected in vocabulary test. Also, comprehension, the comprehension paragraphs that we get in our competitive papers and even English papers. Spatial visualization, this was, it's the ability to manipulate patterns within a space. So form objects and spaces accurately. Then there is perceptual speed. Perceptual speed is the ability to quickly perceive things. being able to perceive colors quickly and appropriately, spaces correctly and appropriately, um, people appropriately. It's all related to perception. Five senses on the on yourself, and it impinges quickly and correctly. Then we have numeral facility, which is a exactly associated to mathematical ability, which is quickness in numerals and accurately. Reasoning is the ability to observe facts, make general rule out of it, and obviously associative memory is the ability to recall, memorize whatever that you've learned, the quickness in learning. So, what they mentioned? They mentioned that in PMA, the primary mental ability theory of Louis Thurston, you need to know that all these seven primary abilities need to be there. They need to be a part of it. You need to be having them around. And at the same time, we need to make sure that all of the seven are present in people. If even one of them is not present, remember, they tend to say that according to psychometric theories, you are not intelligent. Like in this general and specific factor, the general factor is not present. How can you have the specific factor? Specific factor on its own cannot be a part of it. So this is a diagrammatic pattern of seven primary abilities that we have, which is verbal comprehension, word fluency, numeral factor, the perceptual speed, inductive reasoning, which is just did as reasoning, the spatial visualization or recognition, the memory factor is associative memory, deductive reasoning, and problem solving ability, which is essentially the last two combined together. So this was another theory. Let's move to now another part of the theory, which is information processing. Now let's bifurcate how theories are different. Information processing theories are going to be far more elaborate, are going to be lengthy, in length, qualitative, and not something which is quantitative. So let's start with Sternberg's theory of intelligence. According to this theory, Sternberg stated that we have three types of intelligence. First is contextual, and second is creative and experiential, and third is analytical. So let's talk about what do you comprise. And according to these theories, we all can comprise of one of them or a mix of two. We cannot have all of them in one strength. And remember, this is not about what do you have. Psychometric theories were about what do you have and you become intelligent. This is about how do you act, how do you intelligently think and become intelligent. So this is contextual. First part of it is contextual intelligence, which is also referred to as practical intelligence. On the screen, the ability to adapt the environment or situational demands. It is about involving to apply knowledge and information to your real world and thus adapting successfully to the situation. So here, adaptation involves both adapting to your existing environment, modifying your environment to fulfill your needs. So let's take an example. These people are who are able to get adjusted quickly, able to use their environment very quickly, modulate the environment to fulfill their needs, modify the environment to fulfill their needs. So these people are street smart. The ones who are, the quickness, the blinking of an eye and flickering of your fingers and their work is done. They can like put everyone in their, set of mind and in their words, and they can just flew people away. So they are obviously very practical. They're very logical in nature. That's why they fit to each demand. They make adjustment of themselves and adapt in each and in every environment. That's contextual and also called as practical. Why context? Context is also referred to as situation in English. Let's move to the next, which is called the creative intelligence. Creative intelligence is the ability to develop. Creative intelligence is what? Let's just remove the thought of intelligence. What is creativity? Creativity is the ability to create novel ideas from situation. While problem solving also, we expect new ideas coming over. So that's called something which is creative. Now associated to creative intelligence, it's the ability to develop new ideas of ways of solving a problem or tackling a situation. Experiential intelligence or creative intelligence is an ability to develop. It's an ability to develop novel ideas and solutions using your past experiences. So that is something that we need to be aware of. So that is creative. Let's come. This is an analytical thing of the image, and I'll repeat it again. Let's read it. It's such a beautiful image and makes your Sternberg's intelligence understood in a quickly. First was creative intelligence and practical. See, practical talks about adaptation, shaping, and selection. Why? Rightly. You select an environment where you can adapt yourself and then shape the environment according to yourself. That's how these people are. They're very street smart people. Then we come to something which is creative intelligence, also called experiential. You tend to solve problems novelly for unique situations and solutions. And there is something called automation also. What is automation? The already learned material. You are taking novel solutions from the past experiences, the already learned material. And what is analytical that we are going to do next is also called componential, solving of problems, learning new things, making judgments. So it's about acquiring knowledge, cognition, and then performing, evaluating problem solving and performance. Analytical intelligence are people who are actually greatly stated to be great problem solvers. You will also find analytical intelligent people to have a greater IQ because they work logically. They tend to be very good with their IQs. People high in this kind of intelligence score well because these tend to perform high in critical abilities, analytical abilities, perform well in school and academics. They're good in their mathematical and verbal skills. Practical intelligence people, contextual, are street smart and have a great common sense and sense of presence. Creative intelligence are imaginative and innovative problem solving people. Then let's come to another theory which talks about the theory of information processing. So we are considering how are you learning? Why are you learning? For what are you learning? We are not considering what, but we are considering of how an intelligent person acts. This is another most famous theory that we might be hearing. A lot of people talk about multiple intelligence, multiple intelligence. This is theory, Gardner's theory of intelligence, which is called as multiple intelligence theory. According to Gardner, the ability to solve problems of fashion products that are a consequence of a cultural setting or community is called intelligence. He proposed a lot of things. He stated, according to Howard Gardner, there wasn't one kind of intelligence. He stated that there are intelligence is not a single entity. That's something that we need to know first. Also, Gardner stated that if you have two sets of intelligence or three sets of intelligence, and you're high on the first one, does not mean that you will be higher in the second and the third. And also to be quoted, if someone has four kind of multiple intelligences, the kinds that he talked about, they all function together to complete your task. So he proposed that no one has one form of intelligence, but there are a number of intelligence that works together. So let's go through all of them. There were 8 of it that Howard Gardner, who is the psychologist for multiple intelligence theory. Let's start with the first one, which is linguistic theory. People who are this type of intelligence are having a great linguistic ability. They are called the word smart people. They articulate well, they express their thoughts well, they choose the most appropriate and the most correct words, and they easily play with words. These people are poets, writers, they have high level lyricists also, anyone who writes music for you. They know which beats are going to be accepted by the generation, what kind of beats they will love. Also the poets, the way they speak out, the meaning behind what they're speaking is so melodious and so sensible. That's what poets are also. They play with words, they articulate things well, express it beautifully, are linguistic people. Then we come to musical people. Musical people are high in the knowledge and sensitivity of rhythm and music. They can manipulate the musical pattern to create different music. People carrying this intelligence are good singers. They're good instrument players also, and also music composers. So this is completely associated to the side of the music side of life. Then we come to logical mathematical. These people have the ability to think critically, solve abstract problems, focus on logic, focus on systematization. Critical thinking is high. Such people have a scientific tone to them, with good knowledge of numbers, abstract problems. They tend to be inventors, scientists with logical mathematical. I'm sure, when we talk about Newton, when we talk about Albert Einstein, they were logical mathematical equally, I felt. That's why they were great scientists and great inventors of our times. And then we come to another one, which is called the spatial intelligence. Spatial is going to talk about space. Someone's having the ability to manipulate mental images, visual images, and spaces in different spaces. These people are navigators, they are pilots, sailors, architects, painters, and they have a high spatial intelligence. They are the other two that we will discuss. We will discuss inter and intrapersonal. We are going to discuss the naturalistic intelligence. We are going to discuss the bodily kinesthetic. So these are the ones which are left that we will discuss. We have bodily kinesthetic intelligence. This is the ability to control and train your body, a part of construction of products, problem solving. These people are very strong. So bodily kinesthetic is strength, endurance, balance. So sportsmen, gymnasts, ones in military, dancers. So this where the body agencies are very controlled and very well trained. Then we have intrapersonal. Intrapersonal is a kind of intelligence where people are aware of their feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and they are completely aware of their motives are something which is intrapersonal. Also, philosophers, spiritual leaders, are religious leaders also, I would say, someone who are very high in intrapersonal. That's why, they give you a very philanthropic thought about the world, and they tell you how your impact can be. They're away from indulging into self indulgence, but also the worldly indulgence that they wish. This is about being aware of your own self. Interpersonal is having the ability and being people smart. I feel it's being people smart, and understanding other people's thoughts, feeling, motives. And people high on this intelligence use their understanding of other people to develop a comfortable bond with other people. Counselors, politicians, teachers, I think social workers are very high on interpersonal. Social workers and teachers and counselors are very high. Also politicians, the fact that the kind of the way the polling and voting, the polling happens and they do rallies and everything, that's the time they're exhibiting their interpersonal intelligence. Then we come to something which is naturalistic intelligence. Naturalistic intelligence is the ability to be sensitive to different features of the nature, being compassionate towards the nature, having the knowledge of the being, I feel, worldly wise in wildlife. Who all has this better? I feel the wildlife botanists, even gardeners are very high in this. They have it through experience, knowing the knowledge that what kind of soil is required, what kind of field, how to plow things, how to put. That's how gardeners take care of our gardens so well. So that is naturalistic intelligence. So now let's conclude the multiple intelligence. See, we need to know that each individual is a unique combination of these intelligence, which is 8 intelligence. We all are individually different. So remember, a body kinesthetic which looks in a dancer would be very different to a body kinesthetic that looks in a military person. So it would be different in different people. Gardner and his colleague also stated that typical paper pencil test that they put out for intelligence, that does not mention many aspects of intelligence such as interpersonal ability, but it was a very typical paper pencil test which was required to assess all the multiple intelligence. So there were 8. Let's go through all of them again. It's linguistic, it's interpersonal, intrapersonal, visual, spatial. It is logical, mathematical, musical, bodily, kinesthetic, and naturalistic. You can go through the image above on your right. Let's move ahead. So speaking and having an understanding and differentiating it on the level, let's go back and understand how these intelligence differentiate and happens in us. So let's just go back to the first theory of understanding how they are functioning in the environment. So we need to deal with what? We need to deal with the understanding of this intelligence in bifurcating that how do they function in the environment. So now we need to do what? We need to do the application of intelligence and its testing. So to understand how is intelligence tested in something which is G factor and S factor. The G and S factor was a statistical method. Charles Spearman stated that he would be able to navigate this and understand this by being able to make you understand what is the G factor separately and what is the S factor separately. Also, according to Charles Spearman, G factor is something which is available to everyone. It is there for all of us. So knowing this, when this was available to all of us, we need to understand that this G factor will not be tested. What is going to be tested in terms of intelligence is going to be something which is going to be the S factor. The mechanical, the verbal, the dancing, the probably, when we talk about the spatial intelligence, the language intelligence, etc. So when we speak about psychometric, the testing of intelligence happens to be in the format of only the S factors. Also, when we stated that intelligence forms in a continuum, remember people falling above the average, which is just above 50% of this. Let's take an example of the Charles Spearman theory. People let's take an example, in our environment. If we have general factor being there, if for example, if we have high percentage of literacy in the country, everyone will have general factor, which is everybody would be reading, writing and learning. What is that? That is high literacy rate. So general factor being present in the entire population is high literacy rate. Then the testing will only happen on the S factor, which is the specific factor. This was the concept of application of G factor and S factor in the society. Now, moving ahead. According to Thurston's theory, Thurston stated a testing method which comprised of testing all the 7 primary abilities. So children in the earlier times in 1940 were considered to be intelligent if they comprise of all. So let's take an example. How do we function? See the similarities of the theories that we have here. When we talk about the G factor and when we talk about the S factor, general is the ability to write, read, reason, copy from the board, etc. Here, word fluency is speaking well, verbal comprehension is understanding well, spatial visualization is what? Being able to manipulate items, which is being able to write on your copies. Perceptual speed is whatever which is on the board can be copied. After, when you copy it, you analyze and assess it, if it's maths, if it's science, if it's social science, and then you reason it. Reason is how do I need to learn it? Once you learn it, associative memory. So did you see the similarity in the two kinds of intelligence that we see? They seem to be so similar to one another. They seem to be so appropriately given to us. Now, does the psychometric theory has any impact from the nature and nurture? According to the psychometric theories, there is no impact from the nurture. They mention that it's an outproduct of the nature. That means the nurture will not impact the 7 primary abilities. The nurture will not impact the G and S factor. People are born with a general factor. According to Charles Spearman, we are born with the general factor, the ability to reason, the ability to write, the ability to, understand and put things on the paper. It's the specific factor that can be nurtured. So we all have the ability as nurturing. So what can be nurtured? Your specific factors can be nurtured. And 7 primary abilities stated that it's all nature, it's less nurture. If we are born with that genetic inheritance of having these 7 primary abilities. Now, moving ahead of this, let's understand the application of Sternberg's theory. Sternberg's theory has been highly applicable, and we see examples of this which we missed out in the first understanding. Contextual intelligence are found people where? You will find them in today's world. You will find them speaking well, dealing with people well. So remember, these are people who take the entire knowledge from the society. They take the entire knowledge from the environment. And how can you test them? You can test them on the basis of their functionality in the environment. So when we say on the basis of functionality, that means these are people who are street smart. They will select an environment. They will build on that environment, and they select those environments where they can function, where they can work well. They never pick up an environment where they cannot work well. So that's about contextual intelligence. Contextual intelligence are street smart people. They deal with the situational demands beautifully. So if you want to test, according to Sternberg, if you want to test all of these 3 intelligence, you need to test them in their environment. And also Sternberg gave us a definition that intelligence is the ability, to be able to adapt to the environment successfully by keeping in consideration the cultural demands and cultural rituals there. So all of us can be intelligent, but we do not forget the kind of cultural impact that we have on us. So it does say that intelligence is an outproduct of culture. Right? The different kind of culture produces different kind of intelligent children. That's why did you see the Western culture intelligence and the Indian culture intelligence is so different. We all are falling to be different from one another. Now speaking of this, talking of the contextual intelligence, We will find them where these would be, I feel, these would be property dealers. There would be salesmen also, people who are we talk about both the kinds of salesmen, the ones who have luxury products selling, or people who are simple salesmen, people who are selling gadgets to us, and they tell you what kind of, where you can use your items. Let's take an example. You've gone to buy a television, and they'll tell you how smart televisions are important in today's life, and you should put them at this distance. You can just put a hand, you can just wave a hand, and it gets so convenient, and it's all high technology. In today's time, we lack patience, so we should be taking. These people are going to make you function in the society the way it is required. So these are street smart people. Their sense of presence is very high. They tend to modify the environment. So when we say modify the environment, in the first loop, when I was explaining this, I said they will select the environment, they will make changes in it, and then sit on it. So let's take an example of the same, of how do these people function in society. They join a job, they join a workplace where they feel that they might have difficulties because the kind of aptitude that is required is 10% less. What will they do over there? They will adapt to the environment. They'll see the kind of people there are. If they're verbally smart, they will start being verbally smart to them. If they feel that they're very organized, he or she working in that will build up that 10% by being smart enough to being organized in that environment. So this is how a contextual intelligence can be tested and can be analyzed in the environment. Now let's come to the next. Creative intelligence usually are seen in people who are creative. This is something bound and high to be said. When I say we have to test these kind of people, you need to see them. These people have to have a creative stride. These people have to have that sense of creativity within themselves. We cannot pick up people who are low on creativity with this. Also, creativity is what? Creativity is thinking out of the box. Creativity is building something which is new and novel. So remember, if a creative person joins a workplace which is, falling lack in their aptitude, which is they're lesser than that, and if they joined a workplace there, they need to deliver a lot. How will they function? They will solve every problem uniquely. That's point one. Second, these people are very good with problem solving and tackling situation. Why? Because they give no new ideas. They will give you the alternate side of the environment and the world. So this is how they're functioning in the environment. First, that they give you novel ideas. Second, they will give you the brighter side of the world. When we speak about the brighter side, it suggests that we will think of them as giving us always the alternative, or probably something which is not thought about, an idea which is not being thought about, and a situation which is not being thought about. Let's take an example. When we were in pandemic, how many of us realized that online teaching is going to hit us like a wave, and it's going to keep going on all the time? So people who knew that they need to skill themselves, they found new different ways of utilizing that online teaching. So it was an alternative side. So people who are not very good with online teaching, what they might have utilized, if they were not able to write on the whiteboards they utilize videos, they utilize running of the PPTs. So what was it all about? They spoke with the PPT, so it was less effort. So this is how create, and PPTs are vibrant, videos are vibrant, so beautiful to talk about. So that is something which is creative intelligence. People are going to cope in the environment and should be tested. Also, we need to know they have this ability to use their past experiences. They not only use their creativity, but also use the knowledge from the past. So these people are a reservoir of experiences, and they use those past experiences. They might have used an experience of 5 years back right now and changed an entire situation for people. They might have used a thought process which has been 2 years back, very progressive, and presented in a different mode. So these are creative people that we talk about, which is also called as experiential. The reason that is experiential is used for them is because of this. So this is how you see them in the environment and you test them in the environments. So application needs to be very clear of intelligent theories. We've already done the image. Now again, componential intelligence misses out 3 things here. First, componential people are actually very good in class. How? They utilize 3 factors which we missed in the beginning. So what were the 2 factors that we talk about? We need to know componential intelligence states that these people are very analytical. So analytical talks about they're very logical, very good organizers. So what are they going to do? These are people who tend to be stated as intelligent, and intelligent people work in a system. intelligent people don't work haphazardly. So how do you test these people? You test these people when you find them in an environment very organized, very logical. They're high IQ people. So you need to know they're very critical of things. They're very analytical of things. So critical, that means logically, analytically work and find a solution. So that's something which is analytical intelligence, and they are academic problem solvers. So true, and they're computational also. It's mentioned on the image that we discuss again. This is called computational. Why computational? We go in a series of pattern. Something which is missed here in componential is how do componential people work? They first acquire knowledge. That's the first step. They're always going to move in a series. They cannot work without a series. So they're componentially, they will acquire knowledge. Then they will meta-component. What is meta-component? Then they are going to cognitively analyze the situation. Let's take an example. They did psychology today. They did the psychology of personality today. And in personality, learn what was personality, how personality develops, the different kind of theories. That is acquisition, learning, learning, and learning. Now they will meta component, which is apply that to situation, which we are doing right now. We are applying every theory to the environment. So when you apply that to different contexts and different situation, what is the person doing? The person is meta componating, which is problem solving, applying that to the environment, decision making, dealing with it, applying to the real life situation. That is meta componating, which is associating the high value based questions, the value based questions that we have, also the HOTS questions that we have, the high order mental skill questions. That's something which is meta componating. Anecdotal questions, theory based questions. Then what do? Once they understand that this a part can be asked like A and B and C and D, they twist it from every corner, they apply it to the real world. That's why these children tend to be more academically bright. The reason they're very logical, they're very systematic and sequential. And the last is that they function in a very critical pattern, which is they will learn, and it's always going to be same. They learn things, they meta-component it, and they logically put it out. That's performance-based. That finishes. You can go see the image also. To remember always like this. Analytical is also known as componential. Practical is also known as contextual. Creative is also known as experiential. We do the next theory that talks about one of the most important things that we need to know about this theory is that this is a theory that is highly applicable in the society nowadays. The reason that we talk about it being highly applicable, and then we differentiate between psychometric again quickly. The theory was given as the ability to fashion products, in terms of the consequences in a particular cultural situation. So Howard Gardner stated that intelligence is an ability of problem solving and fashioning products, which is creating something new or solving something in life, which is a consequence of their cultural settings also. So, which is very true. Understand the definition. The way you product things, the way you state answers, the way you write your answers is also a product of your cultural settings and your community. So remember, multiple intelligence in the society will always be shaped according to your culture. This is first application of the real life. Then we'll go to all intelligences together. Then we come to something which is linguistic intelligence. We need to know that linguistic intelligence are people who are poets and writers, as we discussed before. Now, how do they function in society? Will only one kind of intelligence be sufficient for them? Can you feel that these people who just speak well will be able to do away with life? No. According to Howard Gardner, he mentioned that we just have one more form of intelligences. We just don't have one. No one can have one form intelligence. We have number of intelligences within us. So some of us might, let's take an example. A person has linguistic, logical, mathematical, and spatial. So the person speaks well. Now let's take a situation, real life situation, and see how these people function. So these people speak well, articulate, express their emotions, everything well. Now there are people who are logical, and the same child has logical, mathematical high, which is they're critical thinkers. They're very abstract. They think on abstract level of a problem. Scientific aptitude, where they want to create something, want to build something in real life, and they deal with numbers really well. These people are inventors and very logical thought people. very analytical. We'll come to a right answer all the time. It is always the correctness of the answer, not the rationale. What is right and wrong? No. What is correct and incorrect are going to. And also, they're very good with spaces. They have the ability to manipulate areas. Now, let's take an example. An individual gets stuck in a road accident. How do we apply this multiple intelligence, which a child has linguistic, logical, and spatial? So get stuck in an accident, which is there's an accident bang, which is of 2 to 3 cars together. People are lying, some of them are bleeding, some are bruised badly, and he is the only individual, or she is the only individual who's sought out to be left. What is the first thing the individual is going to use? The individual is first going to spatially analyze the environment. How many people are bruised? So, according to multiple intelligence, Howard Gardner very correctly stated that we are not going to, utilize what do you call this? We are not going to utilize one kind of intelligence only. So remember, you will not see that person just talking, talking, and talking. You will find that person analyzing the spaces, manipulating the spaces very, very calmly, seeing that these are the number of cars which has collided. These are the number of people that have experienced hurt, experienced bleeding, bruising, or some of them are literally in emergency condition. After that, logically, what needs to be done? The individual will dial the ambulance and state the exact number, state the exact mental image that he or she has preserved. So, spatial intelligence, what? The mental image, and logically quote when and how much loss has happened and how immediately the people needs to be. That's logical intelligence. Then where is linguistic intelligence being used? Remember, the people who have been bruised or in an emergency condition, whenever their people from home come to see the accident, once they're informed that this is the place of this accident, that person will pacify them, tell them how it all happened, express grief, express the emotion of yes, he understand what's gone wrong and how this can be taken care of. So remember, this is how multiple intelligence functions of people in an environment. We will not be living with one kind of intelligence. When we talk about psychologists and counselors, they don't just work on linguistic intelligence. They work on linguistic. I'll tell you how. This is something that we all should know as an application based. What kind of multiple intelligence works with teachers, and what kind of multiple intelligence works with counselors and psychologists? They use intrapersonal, they have intrapersonal, interpersonal, and linguistic intelligence. They would not be logical. They will not tell you to come in a sequence. Okay, we will start our session 1 today, then we will go to session 2, and then I will brief you about your problem. We will discuss your problem. No, we don't do that. We are not here to problem solve like a scientist or an inventor. We are here to solve problems and help them comprehending their problem. For that, what do we need? We need to be people's people smart. We need to develop a comfortable bond. So that comfortable bond will allow you to help you build that bond, speak to those people, and being able to comfort them, help them to confine them in you. And the next, how all of this happens, how a counselor or a psychologist is able to do so without being jittered, without being losing their control, because they are intrapersonally high. What is intrapersonal? Which is being aware of one's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So intelligence functions all the time. None of us has one kind of intelligence. We just being groomed on that one. No, all of us has one or two kinds of intelligence functioning together according to the time, space, and need. Also, now let's get back to understanding how a psychometric and information processing function. We talk about multiple intelligence of Sternberg and Howard Gardner to be of information processing. So did we mention the Howard Gardner and multiple intelligence theories to be 1, 2, 3 cognitive indice of theory? No. We speak about how an intelligent person functions. So when we talk about a naturalist, remember people who are trekkers and ones who are trekking hills, and they are naturalist people. They have the sensibility, the naturalist and spatial intelligence. Why? The ones who trek, scale mountains, climb mountains, and are trekkers, they are fond of the environment. They know that which area can harm them, what kind of areas and plants can harm them, and this is something that they should avoid moving and going. and they're very good with patterns and spaces. They're very good with areas. They're very good with imagining that yesterday we went through a similar kind of path and there was a area where we had to move and be away from the plants because the plants could, literally fall on them, or probably we should not be touching them. They are not healthy. They can lead to poisonous information processing. That was quality. How is quality represented? Multiple intelligence is such a quality thing. They give you not one intelligence but many intelligences. So it tells you that how different kind of intelligent people are functioning in the world. He also gave you a test. So when we talk about intelligence being tested, a paper pencil test itself was given by Howard Gardner to be tested, and it can be applied to children also. Multiple intelligence today is being utilized in international board, and which is international bucket. It has been we need to know that international learning and is separate from CBSE curriculum, which is the central board is very different from that. They train you with all the kind of intelligences, and they train you not only to deal with people but also all the kind of intelligences to make you more street smarter. Similarly, in Sternberg's theory, it was again very qualitative. Did we tell you you need to have 1, 2, and 3, the aggregate ability, and then you become intelligent? No. We told you any of us, the population can be bifurcated into 3 sections. Either you can be contextual, either you can be something which is componential, or you can be creative. So that says that how psychometric and information processing tells us that the two theories can function hand in hand in the world. So that completes an understanding that how intelligence theory are bifurcating the understanding to know these theories support us, our functioning in the environment. So when we talk about the psychometric theory, psychometric actually tells us how we can utilize those theories in the child living, which is in school life. Identifying children is not being able to do these 7 primary abilities. There might be some problem with the child. Whereas when we talk about solving, cognition, which is the ability to think well, reason well, judge well, understand well, is something where the information processing theory is welcome. When we working as a teacher, a gymnast, a sports person, working as a politician, that all can be judged to information processing of how an intelligent person works, not in the aggregate ability. We cannot use aggregate ability to apply it in the society, in the functioning of the society. This completes the understanding of intelligence. Let's just revise and know what is intelligence. According to Webster, intelligence was quoted to be an aggregate ability of aggregate of abilities, global capacity. It is a global capacity. When we talk about it as a global capacity, that means it deals with everything: your ability to speak well, reason well, and judge well, and to act purposely, think rationally, and to deal with your environment. So we deal with basic 3 things according to Webster. You being able to think what is right and wrong. Once you're able to do that, you're able to deal with the environment perfectly, and you'll be able to also act purposefully, which is have a purpose in life, walk through it. Also, to understand people above 130 of IQ, which is, as I said, intelligence is a continuum, which is it is like a scale. You have a midpoint and on the other side there's a negative and there's a positive. You can see it like that. So the on the one hand of the side where the positives increases, remember 130 of IQ plus is considered to be gifted children. They are considered to be as gifted. Remember, lesser than the average IQ, which in today's world is 100 and 110, which is the average IQ. Go back 15 to 20 years back at our times, the average IQ used to be 90 to 100. See, today it's all increasing. And again, the proportion was 130 was gifted children. But today, the gifted children are far more than that. It's 130 and plus, and lesser than 70 are intellectually disabled. That completes our understanding of what intelligence is and how they bifurcate into 2 different theories and its application. Thank you.